Thank you, Professor McCollum. May I invite the students and those guests who are to come forward a little bit, please? Thank you. I'm Rabbi Peter Hyman. I'm the rabbi in Easton, Maryland. I have a relationship with the college through a number of avenues, but most especially through Professor Joseph Prudhomme and our president, and I'm grateful for the honor of participating in this ceremony of memorial. We are a congregation united by loss, and we convene sadly at death's invitation, and yet we convene to celebrate life. We convene to acknowledge and celebrate Jacob's life. But how can we celebrate life when the very act of living has sucked us into a vacuum of grief? How do we celebrate life when the oppressive weight of sorrow lays heavy on our chest and makes each breath that we take painful? How do we celebrate life when the light of our joy no longer shines, his glowing radiant flame extinguished, eclipsed by the blackness of being no longer, in its place inconsolable sadness and heartache? We celebrate life, we celebrate Jacob's life, by embracing the poet's words and acknowledging the truth described therein. He wrote, "We live in deeds, not years, in thoughts, not breaths, in feelings, not in figures on a dial. We should count time by heartthrobs. He most lives who thinks most, feels noblest, does the best." The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow, confronted by death, the death that has taken Jacob from our midst, we feel our frailty. Like delicate flowers, we flourish only for a day. Eternal God, grant solace and comfort to those who mourn. May their lives together help to sustain them and add to the blessing which is theirs in the memory of the life we now honor. In the valley of the shadow of death, beside the still waters and in green pastures, you are our shepherd. Be our strength and our shield, our stay and our comfort throughout all our days. And let us as a congregation say, Amen. I have the privilege of introducing the president of Washington College, President Baer.
Thank you, Rabbi Hyman. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're particularly privileged to have Dr. John and Deborah Marburger with us and other members of Jacob's family. Jacob Marburger, by all accounts, was a brilliant, funny, inquisitive young man, wise beyond his years. He touched a chord within this community that reverberates still. Tonight, here in the center of campus, we are all Jacob. He craved what our best selves crave, a sense of purpose, a drive to make a difference, the courage to do the right thing. I wish he could be here to see this outpouring of love and compassion for him tonight. He seized every opportunity our school made available to him. He was elected to enroll at Washington College as a presidential fellow. He embraced his studies, a star student who showed great passion for world politics. He fully engaged in campus life. He played a leadership role in student government. He joined a fraternity. He participated in Hillel activities, supported a Relay for Life, and volunteered in the community. Jacob loved this campus and his many friends here. He would want us to learn from this tragedy and become a better, stronger school. That is why I have decided to convene a task force not to look backward and blame or finger pointing, but to look forward. To look at our policies and how we apply them when dealing with crisis situations. To look at how we make decisions. To look at how we communicate. And most importantly, to look at how we protect not only physical safety, but emotional safety in this era of anonymous chat rooms and websites where one thoughtless push of a send button can cause incalculable psychological harm. My question to the task force will be, what can we do better in the future? Great schools, and this is a great school, are constantly assessing themselves honestly, changing, improving. We are a close community. That's what drew Jacob to us. And I want to make sure that we preserve and strengthen our long-standing culture of mutual respect, trust, and support. But we do not need to wait for a task force to honor Jacob's life. We can honor him today and every day by showing each other compassion and understanding, by resolving conflicts, not with meanness and spite, but through reasoned and open communications. We can honor him by reaching out when we see a friend in trouble, and by encouraging those facing difficulties to avail themselves of the help and counsel this school and their loving families are so eager to provide. We can honor him by being kind. Look around this public square. Cherish the people around you. That is what Jacob would want. According to Jewish tradition, we will gather here again 11 months from now to unveil a living monument to Jacob's memory. Next fall, in the heart of campus, we will dedicate a cherry tree in his honor and install a bronze plaque that will serve as an enduring reminder of what Jacob means to us and the promises we have made in his memory tonight. Jacob will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Let me now invite to the podium Professor Joseph Prudhomme.
I am profoundly honored to share today, if only too briefly, my tremendous esteem and regard for Jacob Marburger. Jacob was a light in my life, a young man whose passion to learn inspired me always to search for more, to reach for more, indeed, to hope for more, from myself as a teacher and as a scholar. Jacob indeed challenged me as a scholar. We were working over the summer on the outlines of a new research project, and he provided new interpretive vistas, questions for further research that aided our project immeasurably. Jacob challenged me as a teacher as well. His questions in class were always so apposite, so incisive, so helpful to our classroom discussion that it challenged me to summon previously untapped vigor to explain complex concepts and to connect dots where connections there surely were, but where those connections were visible only to the most exacting of minds. Indeed, such was the mind of my friend Jacob, exacting in its quest for knowledge, exacting in its commitments to service, integrity, and principle. Jacob, we will miss him dearly.
Thank you, Joe. Professor Philip Walsh.
I too am honored to be here to speak about Jacob, for Jacob, with Jacob. I taught him last spring in English 101, of course I teach every semester to now scores of Washington College students. Teach a lot of the same texts, ask a lot of the same questions, get a lot of the same stares back at me. One text that I taught Jacob last year, which I taught this semester with my students, was a play called Red by John Logan. It's about Mark Rothko, the abstract expressionist painter. At the beginning of that play, Rothko is meeting his new assistant, Ken, and he says to Ken, he's asking him to look at one of his murals that he's painting, asks him what he sees. He's not happy with Ken's response. And he tells Ken, be specific, be exact, but sensitive, be kind, be a human being. That's all I can say when looking at one of my paintings. I taught this play last week in another class, and I kept coming back to those words: specificity, exactness, sensitivity, kindness. It's a recipe for being a human being, of course, but it's also a recipe for how to think, how to be aware about the world. And I think at times that's what I learned from Jacob. When he used to stare back at me and almost say with those eyes, Professor Walsh, be more specific, be more exact, be sensitive, be kind. It's those rare occasions, and actually not too rare, but they do happen all the time, where I learn from students, and I learned a lot from Jacob, and for that I am very grateful. And I know the students in that class were very grateful for him and for his contributions. And that's what I'll remember. Thank you.
We invite Professor Christine Wade to share some comments.
On behalf of myself and Jacob's other professors who could not be up here this evening, I extend our heartfelt condolences to Dr. and Mrs. Marburger and the Marburger family. We also wish to thank our colleagues and students who have shown us particular kindness during this difficult time. I admit that I was hesitant to speak this evening until I reminded myself that Jacob would have never passed up an opportunity at an open mic. I can only hope I do him justice. My first interaction with Jacob was tense. I thought he was, to be honest, a little obstinate. But I came to adore and admire him all the same. Anyone who met him could attest he was wildly intelligent, deeply curious, incredibly funny, generous of spirit, and highly principled. He could also be intense, confrontational, and maybe a little too dogged at times. Jacob was all of these things. And above all else, he was authentic. He was unapologetically himself, perhaps the quality in him I admired most. I know that Jacob meant many things to many people. For me, Jacob carries a very important reminder. We are all of us, more than any one thing. Had I not opened myself up to the possibility that Jacob was more than he appeared to be on first meeting, we would have never shared laughs about Cold War military jokes. I would have been deprived of his seemingly endless knowledge of military history. I would have missed out on his insatiable quest for knowledge and his wry sense of humor, and that cheeky grin of his might never have revealed itself. I would have missed the most eloquent email diatribes about various injustices, particularly that bookstore, that one could possibly imagine. More importantly, I would never have known how different we weren't, and I would have missed out on that last heartfelt conversation that I will always remember. My wish for everyone here tonight is that you honor Jacob by embracing one another for the complicated, multidimensional creatures that we are, that you show understanding and patience in the face of difference, and that you remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is how we treat each other. Be kind, be kind, be kind.
Thank you, Professor Wade. We're going to move to hear remarks and some reflections from students and friends. And I would invite Ethan Trucker to join us on the podium.
I first met Jacob on freshman move-in day. I was with my mother inside my room, unpacking the last of my stuff. I had my door open, as is wanted for first semester freshmen, and in comes Jacob with his signature grin. He introduced himself, and as he looked around the room, he noticed that I did not have a lock on my closet. He then proceeded, after only knowing me for all of 5 minutes, to lecture me on keeping my belongings safely locked for about 15 minutes. Actually, in my pocket right now, I still have that key to that lock. I have so many great memories of Jacob and his exploits around the world. Yes, there were some bad ones, but for the majority, they were nothing but fun and fantastic memories. As for his character, I don't think I've ever met someone with such great intellect and debate skills as him. For such a long time, I believed that he was just pulling these facts out of thin air. There's just no way one person can know as much as he did. However, I soon realized that he was actually a walking encyclopedia. In regards to his debating skills, I remember getting into debates with him and coming out agreeing with every one of his concepts and ideas. I had to stop and remind myself what I was even arguing for. He was just so damn convincing. Overall, we may not have agreed on many points, but I always valued his opinion on many different subjects. As the semester came and progressed, we began to drift away. The last memory I have of Jacob is him coming to a Hillel movie night on the Thursday before everything happened. I remember him being so excited for some little-known Israeli movie we were watching. He was especially excited over the free nachos and melted cheese. If I only knew that this would be the last time I saw him, I would have cherished it more than I did. But what consoles me the most is that he seemed to have really enjoyed the event. I like to think that this had brought him some relief during that trying week. I wish I knew the full story of Jacob's struggle. I would have been there for him more. I wish I had done more to remind him that he had friends who truly cared for him. The only thing that I truly wish for is that Jacob has found the peace he so desired and deserved. I will miss him, my friend Jacob Marburger. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Katie Washart.
I wanted to start by saying how grateful I am to have such wonderful memories of Jacob that I can share. Though our friendship was cut short too soon, the day I met Jacob remains very strong in my mind. I was a peer mentor assigned to moving freshmen into Kent the day orientation began. Jacob and his parents showed up pretty early, and it was already hot, even for a late August day. I remember meeting Jacob and watching him march up the stairs of the place that he would call home for the next year. He possessed that candor and excitement that only Jacob could. I remember his enthusiasm as he bounced up the stairs to the second floor of Kent as I slowly trudged up behind him, both of us loaded down with all of the makings of a freshman dorm. His parents excitedly introduced themselves, beaming over their now freshman son. I remember that day so vividly. I mostly remember the excitement on Jacob's face and the look of pride on those of his parents, and those are looks I will never forget. As his first days turned into months, and months into his first year at Washington College, I watched Jacob flourish. Throughout his time here, I had the honor of befriending Jacob. He astonished me regularly with his absolutely brilliant vocabulary and his endless knowledge. Even more than that, he impressed me with his everlasting kindness and sense of righteousness. I remember one night in particular, I was upset about something that had happened earlier in the day. I happened to be talking to Jacob about it. Looking back, I couldn't even tell you what it was I was upset about, because Jacob came and sat with me in the common room of my suite, cracking jokes and showing that contagious grin of his until nearly 1 a.m., when we both probably had homework that we should have been doing. He made me laugh until I forgot what it was I was upset about in the first place. That's one of my favorite memories of Jacob. Jacob was so very special to me. My heart is heavy, and I have yet to find the words to describe the tremendous loss that the world has just endured. I already miss his spirit and sense of humor, and I'll always remember the half grin that he had right before a ringer of a joke, as he always called them. His kindness and enthusiasm was contagious, and he continues to make me a better person every day, and for that, I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We will hear from Cameron Gilson.
I wrote this upon hearing about Jacob's passing. I would like to share it with you today. Jacob, you changed my life. You showed me that no matter what, friendship is what comes first. You're always a great friend to me, and an even better brother. You truly wanted to change the world, one step at a time. You started out with the SGA and making our fraternity better, but you had plans to do much more. You truly cared. If I ever had a problem with anything, you'd be there. If I was curious of how something worked, you'd know. If I was feeling down, you'd tell me an interesting joke to keep my mind up. You shaped me to become a better person. You wanted the best in people, whether they saw it or not. You truly had a gift like no other. I wish I could talk to you one last time. I wish you knew how much of an impact you had on people and how you could actually change the world. You were destined for success. I wish I had known what you're thinking and how it could have helped. You will never be forgotten. You'll always be my brother. I'll see you around the day.
Josh Morgan, come on up.
Upon reflecting on the events of recent weeks, I've been plagued by far more questions than answers. It seems that when a friend passes, they take with them a small piece of each and every one of us and leave a hole that at first feels as if it will never be filled. The sudden loss of a loved one at such a young age leaves us questioning the very fabric of the reality that we knew. The worlds are turned inside out. We grasp onto anything that gives us comfort. One thing that comforts me is the memory of my friend and the quality of the man that I knew he was. As we all know, Jacob possessed an intelligence far beyond his years, but that didn't stand out to me anywhere near as much as the quality of his character. Jacob was a man of morality. He was never afraid to stand up for what he believed in, and he was the first person to reach out to a friend in need. As Jacob's big brother in our fraternity, I tried to guide him when he had questions and be there for him when he needed a friend. But I truly believe that I learned far more from Jacob than I could ever offer in return. Jacob's steadfast conscience and moral compass far surpassed that of anybody I've known in my life, and his level of integrity speaks dividends about the kind of man that he was. The impact that Jacob had on my life was profound, and getting to know him undoubtedly helped shape aspects of the man that I am today, as well as the man that I hope to become. I feel truly blessed to have been fortunate enough to call him a friend, and the light of his memory will forever fill the hole left by his passing. The thought of all the good that can be done in this world, if we each conduct ourselves in a manner that would make Jacob proud, fills me with hope and joy. If each one of us tries to exemplify the passion and the character of our friend, then his legacy will forever live on in us all. Through his passing, we are blessed with an opportunity to better the world just as Jacob would have if he were still here with us. And in doing so, we celebrate his life in the way that he would have wanted. My heart goes out to Jacob's parents, the rest of the Marburger family, and everyone else that was fortunate enough to have called him a friend. I love you, brother. You'll be missed.
Sean Murray will conclude the student comments and remembrances.
I first met Jacob last April. I'd come to visit the college before making my decision whether to attend or not. I remember feeling like I was home. Everywhere I went, people were kind, accepting. And even with all of this, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if this was the place for me. It wasn't until Richie, one of my friends, invited me to come hang out with him at Cecil with a bunch of Phi Delts. It was then when I knew that this place was the place for me. I remember sitting there around the couches for hours talking, meeting new people, and hearing Jacob explain the origins of the word vanilla. I knew then these weren't just friends, they were family. It wasn't until this year, until I really became part of this family, that I knew how close everyone here really is. Everyone I knew, they knew they could always go to Jacob, as I did often. There was never a dull moment, from asking girl advice to him barking like a dog to cheer someone up, to introducing him to Chick-fil-A, where he gave his name as McChicken. He invited me into his family, from the Phi Delts to Model UN. And now, as his family, as we stand together, one member short, for even as we stand one member short, he is still with us. He remains with us in the memories that we have and the stories that we tell. Because we are family. Because families don't forget. Because families can't forget. And then we know that he would do the exact same thing for us. We will never forget Jacob.
I invite to the podium Jacob's mother, Deborah Marburger.
First, let me thank everyone who's here, for my sister Sandy and Lainey and Patty and my brother Jim and John's amazing father. Jacob's amazing father, John. This is really a fabulous outpouring and an opportunity for me to come back to the college once again, which has been just a good step in the right direction. So I wrote, for Jacob's Remembrance, Washington College, 12/12/15. Often I wondered what it would be like to live in Jacob's mind and be able to see so clearly the injustices in the world and yet find so few capable of discussing so poignant a view. Jacob was able to take information, synthesize it with some history, sprinkle it with his innate knowledge, and come up with something original and moving. He could think on his feet and come up with something so profound, so often, and yet still not be fully understood. He was a great mind seeking great minds. Jacob was my counsel. Many times he guided me to remember my good points and find a better vantage point when my self-esteem wavered. I watched and listened to the goals and dreams of my astute 19-year-old son. In the end, the clarity and understanding that he leaves me with is this: what a human being needs to survive and thrive is to feel a sense of belonging. Simply, Jacob just could not bear being kicked out of one more thing. Every path he had placed himself on, with hopes of creating positive change, was suddenly closed to him. As I was writing this speech, I got the inspiration to look up the term, rise up like a phoenix from the ashes. I learned that the phoenix in classic mythology is defined as a unique bird that lived 5 or 6 centuries in the Arabian desert, after this time burning itself on a funeral pyre and rising from the ashes with renewed youth to live through another cycle. Also, phoenix can be used to define a person regarded as uniquely remarkable. I believe George Washington would like the symbol of the phoenix, much like the eagle is symbol of our country's freedom, and now the hawk. Please be inspired to soar to new heights. Restore, replenish your sense of purpose as individuals and as a college community. You have great leaders at the helm. Jacob was very pleased with the selection of Dr. Sheila Bair as new president. He spoke highly of all his professors and the opportunities he was guided to: Model UN, SGA, a Phi Delta Theta Leadership Conference, a seminar sponsored by the Institute for Humane Studies at Bryn Mawr College this past summer. I cannot even begin to encapsulate in words how ecstatic he was about the opportunity to do research with Professor Prudhomme. Jacob gained so much from the experiences this college provided and from all those who encouraged him to participate in them. So go out and get involved. Keep forging those paths that meant so much to my son, and I will be eternally grateful. It has long been time to start new activities that foster new approaches to life on college campuses. Because of my role as a holistic therapist, I would like to suggest that on a Saturday night, rather than drinking, some students find a peaceful place to meditate on and discuss compassion and peaceful coexistence. As Washington College has been at the cutting edge since 1782, I hope you will find renewed strength in coming to the awareness that your efforts could ripple out and affect change at colleges throughout our country. It may appear a daunting task, but as I do every day now, I encourage myself to take a step and then one more step toward living the principles Jacob stood for with commitment and grace. I hope to eventually turn those little steps into great strides, where I become less and less a bystander and speak louder than ever before about what needs to change. I need only one prop, my Washington College Bomb Cup. Every morning I start my day, as I have since the fall of 2014, with a cup of coffee in my favorite cup. I will continue to be a proud Washington College mom. Jacob loved this campus from the moment he set his feet on it. It has a good vibe, we said. I will always be proud of my presidential scholar and savor the memories of how he blossomed and got to show his true colors. To the phoenix, to the hawk. Through my studies, I have come to understand you cannot see the light without going through the dark. You cannot make peace with the dark without embracing the light. Go in peace and embrace your parents, your family, and your friends during this holiday season. Go forward full of hope. Return to this wonderful campus renewed and full. Continue to believe and actualize yourselves as individuals and as part of the revolution for greater good. And now I leave you with a few of the last words Jacob put on paper. Know that I loved you all. To the hawk. I think now we need all those lights lit up. Let's see it, guys. Let's see the lights.
May I ask, if you're not standing, to please stand as we listen to the ringing of the college victory bell. Think of me when the pounding sea pours at the sand in savage glee, or the freezing wind on a winter's day sets the glittering ice-clad trees asway, or when in some broad open space you meet the night sky face to face, and up from the daisy field some noon send me a thought because it's June. Oh, recollect I felt the worth of all the lovely things on earth, of burning leaves and shady trees, of snow and shy anemones, of stones washed clean and rippling brooks, of the joy of friends and the love of books, of fruitful work and the brave noise of blithe expostulating girls and boys, of fire's multicolored spell, of you, my dears, that I loved so well. And in your love that was my pride, remember I lived, forget I died. We conclude with a blessing for the living. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord look down upon you and be gracious to you. May God look down upon you, feel your pain, heal your hurt, underscore your memories, and grant you God's most precious blessing, the blessing of contentment of soul and of peace, now and always. And to that prayer we all say, Amen.
Thank you all for coming. This has been a very special night. Thank you. Good evening.